I'm often asked the question of what's the best piece of advice or what's the best thing you can tell somebody about finding their charisma and their purpose and the nudge that they might need to pursue what's in their heart and all of that. And I think the number one thing after being in the celebrity world and the world of Hollywood and being in the real world and seeing and working with people of all different industries and levels of education, that the most important thing is to not believe what other people say about you, whether it's good or whether it's bad. That is not your identity. Your identity is it's to me, it's in God. It's in the creator. It's in what you were designed to be here on this planet. And it is not what a hater says about you on Instagram. And the way to relieve that is to just go, wow, they still have a journey to go. They're on a different journey than you. But what they say about you has nothing to do with your actual value.
Hello and welcome, dear listeners. You are tuned into Age of Reinvention, how to discover a new freedom lifestyle and purpose at midlife. I'm your host, Emily Bron, bringing you season 2, where we introduce you to some of the most visionary reinvention guides and coaches. Today, we are excited to introduce you to the captivating Sandra D. Robinson, a charisma coach with unique journey. From her days as a celebrated actress to her current role guiding individuals to be fearless and unforgettable, Sandra's transition is a testament to the power of reinvention. Whether it's on stage, on screen, or in a boardroom, her charisma shines through. Imagine turning your 50s and beyond into a time of vibrant exploration and impactful new beginnings. Sandra's unique approach, which incorporates nature and majestic horses, is not just about unveiling the charisma we all carry within. It's about practical applications in your life. Whether you're considering a new career, enhancing your current retirement, or simply adding more sparkle to your life. Sandra's insights today will light the way. So settle in and dive into conversation full of inspiration, practical advice, and the gentle push you might need to start reinventing your life today. Ready to get started? Let's go. Hello, Sandra. Happy to see you.
Happy to see you too. What an awesome intro. I feel like, okay, that's good. And thank you all. That's all, folks. No, I'm just kidding.
My first question, actually, you have intriguing title as a charisma coach. Can you explain what charisma coaching is and how you help individuals become fearless and unforgettable on stage, screen, and in the life on the different leadership roles?
Yes, it is a strange title for sure. It actually was given to me while I was doing a media interview. Then I remember I was in Florida. It was Tampa, Florida, maybe. And it was like a daytime show. And I glanced over, or maybe it was when I saw the playback, and they had my name and they had charisma coach as my title. And I was like, what the heck is that? That's stupid. That's tacky. I'm like, I had all these ideas of what I thought. And then on second thought, I was like, but wait, it's alliteration. And I like that. And it is what I do. And so we just kept it. But my company, my original company was called Charisma on Camera. I still have that. And so then I use the word charisma in a lot of different programs I've done. It's just hung out. And so for me, charisma, it's interesting when you say that word and I ask a group of people, what does it mean to be charismatic? It's the first thing that comes out of somebody's mouth is confident. I don't want to be a confidence coach. There's just something about that, but I like the term charisma because charisma to me is so much more than confidence. It's the power of influence that is within all of us. And I think that everybody has their own type of charisma, of this power. And I think that it's when we tap into who we actually are and own all of that. I have a phrase that says, own the magnificence inside of you and the world will respond accordingly. And that's what I go for with everybody that I work with, whatever field they're in, whatever industry they're in, whether they're an introvert, an extrovert, a speaker, somebody who has never been in front of a camera or in front of an audience ever in their life. I think that everybody has this thing inside of them that is exactly what is needed already inside of them to attract the people that they most want into their life and business. I just help them uncover it.
You're just helping people to find their own charisma if they are unaware of it and actually how to light it up. Yes?
Yes. You mentioned the word spark or sparkle. That's one of my words that I like. So, yeah, I like to set a little fire to the spark that is already there. There's a spark in somebody's heart that they may want to do something, especially at a time of transition. I know that your audience, you're helping people that are transitioning from maybe being fully employed to retired, or they've left their job, they sold their company. They're in this phase of what next? What do I do next? And I think if there's something in their heart, that's the spark that I'm talking about.
Okay, let's speak a little bit about your personal transition from acting to coaching. As far as I know, you've had successful career in television and film across renowned networks like ABC, CBS, Hallmark, and NBC. What inspired you to transition from acting to charisma coaching? What happened?
What happened? Yeah, I think there was I think there was one day where, and I primarily worked I did other things as well. You'll see me pop up on reruns or old TV shows as guest star, but my ready employment for many years was working in soap operas. And I think one day I realized that, yes, I had a platform, but a lot of those years I didn't have the confidence to be myself. I was hiding behind the characters. And so I think now I speak to people, wherever their platform is. I think everybody has one and they can utilize it they can leverage it to the fullest extent possible. I knew I wasn't doing that because I felt like the biggest impact I was making was people were naming their babies after my fictional character. And I was like, I think I might be able to have a little more impact on the planet than this. So I really just decided to take the opportunity to once I was on my own journey to find my own voice. It got so painful to not have it. And we can talk about that in a little bit if you want. But it was when I started to find my own voice that one of my teachers said to me, "Why don't you teach some of my people? I have too many." And I was like, I'm not a teacher. I've never coached, I thought, or taught anybody. And so I said, all right. And so I started to take these people that were coming into us that wanted to host their own TV shows. They wanted to host things. And some of them had skills. They knew how to stand, they knew how to speak, but they weren't booking any jobs. They weren't making any money. And the first thing I did was work from the inside out. That's what worked for me. And so I had a very different, unusual way of working with the clients that came into her business. And they started accelerating into their own brand, their own personality really quickly. And they started booking jobs. And she came into the room one day and goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing that's helping them find this work?" And I said, "I'm just taking away the scripts initially, taking away the performance, and I'm seeing what lights them up. I'm seeing what makes them, literally makes their pupils dilate, their cheeks flush a little bit. When we talk about something that we're excited about, we have actual indicators that other people pick up as being sincere." And so when I see that light up in somebody, I go, okay, that's the point that I want to get them to. That's the comfort zone that I want them to feel when they're in front of a camera. And then it became when they're on stage, when they're presenting, when they're leading. So it just expanded from just helping people on camera to actually, helping them with their presence no matter where they are.
Great. You've taken some bold steps in your career, Sandra. But for many of our listeners stepping into already in their 50s and beyond, this time can feel like crossroads. How do you guide individuals in embracing their age and stage as a powerful asset in a personal and professional reinvention?
I had somebody talk to me this morning, a mentor of mine, And it's perfect that he said this. So there's a level of expertise that you have. And I'm speaking to your audience now, whatever their expertise is. It could be the job that they've been doing forever. It could be a hobby or a passion that they've had, but there is something that they are an expert in that just lights them up. And they are so good at it that it's more than skill. It's experience and skill. It's hard knocks and skill. So if they are thinking, just as an example, to go from working for a company to consulting, where they still get to do that thing, but they get to do it on their own terms, that might be something that is absolutely perfect, because then they're being lit up and they're still continuing to do what they do. And the realization, the identity, I think, for them to own is that there are things that people that are younger that have skills don't have. And that's the experience, the knowing of how to get through some of the obstacles, the hard knocks, the stuff that you can't really teach somebody until they go through it. But you can guide them so that you can prepare them for when it does hit them later. And that's part of the beauty of being any respect piece that they can elicit from being over 50 and choosing to help people in whatever it is that they're doing. And I think it's incredibly beautiful. Some of the people that I remember when I was in my 20s and 30s that were so impactful to me, every single one of them was over 50. Every one of them. And I took what they said with such eagerness and hungerness, because they were already where I thought I wanted to be at the time. So hugely valuable. It's in the identity. It's how they're seeing themselves. Most important.
Thank you. Your work is unique, and it involves unique nature-based training retreats, particularly with horses. How did this approach come about, and why do you believe the nature and horses specifically are powerful tools for personal development?
It is another weird thing, isn't it? It's a weird thing to say that I'm a communication and self-leadership coach, and I partner leaders with horses. And most often people say, oh, that sounds great, but I don't ride. And my answer is, we don't ride. On a rare occasion, maybe in the near future, we may incorporate a certain type of riding, but we don't ride, where everything is done on the ground. We simply take away your ability to communicate with language through the verbal expression of words. So I came across this several years ago when I was introduced to a magnificent place in the Midwest that was taking children that were rescued from sex trafficking. It was a very serious situation. These kids were they were dealing with others' trauma. Everybody has trauma. We call it big T and little t. These were big T's. This was all big trauma that these kiddos were coming from. Some of them had been sold into slavery as early as 5. And when they would show up, they had a lot of stuff to work through in order to become healthy, have healthy relationships, go into society and be a healthy, active person. And so one of the main things that they used at this camp, if you want to call it that, was horses. I had never seen this before. And so it was amazing to me, because another side of me, I've been studying animals since I was 3. So my brother helped with that. He was 18 years older than me, and he was a wildlife biologist. So he would send things home to me, and I had a mother that didn't want me around. So I just dove into reading and books and drawing and things like that. And it really stuck with me. So when I saw that you could take this magic of animals and have it do good with human beings that were struggling with something that seems so insurmountable, physically, mentally, I wanted to know more about it. And long story short, after several meetings, I found a facilitator that introduced it to my community. They seemed to love the idea. They were infatuated with it. And I was like, okay. Now I'm still just training people on camera at the time. So like, how am I going to fit this in? But I continued. And when I actually at one point decided that I wanted to become a facilitator. I wanted to learn more about it and get certified. And I loved every single second of it. So if somebody out there is looking for what's going to be their next step, if there's something that you are interested in and time stands still when you're in there learning about it and doing it, that's the thing. That's the thing. And so for me, learning about the way horses can heal somebody, especially that person with trauma, was fascinating to me. So when I get introduced now, as I've incorporated this nature based training in 2019. I first just started doing workshops, kind of testing it out. And now we do workshops that are several hours, or we do multiple day retreats, and we do them here in Austin. We have one coming up in Utah, which we will be repeating. I have a location in North Carolina. I have a few in California, one in Ireland. So we have different areas that I can actually go and do this work. It does not have to be anymore at my own farm here, but it is an in-person thing. So it's an adjunct to the rest of the teaching that I do. And the communication and leadership skills that come from working with an animal like a horse, the transformation feels emotionally safe, which is a big word now. Everybody's talking about emotional safety at work, but it's a big word all the time. Being in a state where you feel like you could get persecuted for being wrong is rather unhealthy, and it limits our ability to initiate change in our thought behavior and in our patterns of thinking. And so when we have them in front of a horse and the horse tells them, hey, you're not being sincere, I can tell them your horse is reacting to something, what's going on in your mind, because I can see what's happening with the horse. It's my job to ask the human being what's going on inside right now. And usually, if I'll give you an example, if a horse walks away from somebody who's trying to connect with them, I'll say, what's going on inside? And they'll say, I'm actually afraid. Okay, why don't you go over and actually say to your equine partner, you're afraid of them? And they're like, do they understand that? I said, no, they don't understand the language, but they'll understand the energy and the fact that now the way you're acting and what you're saying is in alignment. They'll pick that up. And sure enough, somebody will go over and be like, all right. And their body will change, right? They'll go from trying to be tough and confident and holding their body upright to slumping their shoulders and giving up. They look like they're giving up, and they're giving up the fakeness is what they're doing. And they go, okay, I'm a little afraid of you. I don't know what I'm doing. 9 times out of 10, that horse will then turn around and choose to engage with them. It's something that simple, but it's very deep. And it informs us that when we are in alignment and we are in the moment, we're so much more powerful than when we're worried about the next thing or worried about what happened yesterday. Being in the moment is probably the number one thing that I teach people about being charismatic, about being a great leader, putting them in the environment with the horses. It's the number one thing and one of the very first things that they have to kind of master. And it's something you can walk away and do with even without a horse, right? We give them tools to be able to do that when they go back to their real life so that they can access that piece of themselves and be able to connect with their higher power, with God, as I call it, with their abilities to create, solve problems, and just be the most productive human being they can be.
Amazing listening to you. And I know even from my personal life and surrounding how communication with horses helped some children to get to the balance and actually to improve their mental health. And now I'm thinking about storytelling is good in any age. And it's obvious for me that you are incorporating this skill in your practice and daily life. How important is personal storytelling in reinventing oneself? And what tips do you have for our listeners on crafting and sharing their stories to navigate new beginnings or changes?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, stories to me, I grew up as an actor telling stories. That's what was fascinating about it. Remember, I grew up reading books, stories, things about animals, but it was stories. And so getting to be an actor and actually tell those stories physically was incredible. So I'm a huge fan of stories. Learning to do my marketing, I realized that facts and figures are great, but they're not going to transform somebody. Transforming somebody and having them actually feel what you want them to feel to change somebody else's state of being, stories will connect emotionally. And so there are so many tips to telling stories, but number one is even if you want to teach, there is a certain amount of vulnerability that has to happen when you are teaching, when you're guiding. So, say somebody wants to go from working in corporate to coaching people. Working in corporate traditionally, now it's changing a little bit, which is, I'm glad. It's one of the reasons that I'm getting busier with the equine retreats is that there is this idea of being more emotionally whole at work, and that's that emotional safety that I mentioned. But previous to like the past decade, it has really been shove your emotions down, don't let anybody know what you're thinking or feeling, just do your job. And then you decide to become a coach and marketing what you're doing. You sometimes people would have the inclination to just stick to the results, the statistics, and just shoving numbers out there. When the reality is, if you say, hey, my passion is helping people lose weight, I'm just going to say, I'm a coach and I'm a new coach now, and I lost weight and got fit at the age of 40. And my friends saw that and I started to help them. And now I'm opening up my own coaching business, and I'm going to show people how at any age they can lose fat, get fit, feel strong, and extend their healthy life into the later years. Okay. So that's my platform. If I don't say what my journey was, if I just say, yep, now I'm going to be a health coach because being healthy when you're older and being strong is the way to finish off your life. You should do this, is what that sounds like. Okay, that doesn't move somebody to change. If I say, here's my story. I'm making this up because I wasn't, but I was pre-diabetic, or I had a heart attack at a young age, or I came back from cancer, or whatever the thing was that was the thing that pushed me into becoming really crazy about being healthy. I tell that story. I tell the stuff that was difficult. And then people go, oh, not everybody, but the right people, the people that you are going to be seen as most charismatic with, right? The one that when you really just go there and go, look, this happened to me and this sucked. Like, this was a horrible time. I knew I had to find a way out of the situation. My solution to it was XYZ. And when I learned how to do XYZ, all of my friends said, how did you do that? I started showing them. That's why it's so important for me, because I see the changes in them and I know I can make changes in you. That's storytelling at its finest. It's being that vulnerable and sharing that pain, and then sharing, hey, there's a solution. And I'm the example of the solution. That's huge. That's marketing. Some people would say marketing 101. But just this morning, I was hearing about a company that they paid workers, 6 different workers, for 1,200 hours to do a presentation, and none of it had a story in it. It was all facts and figures. And so my associate went to evaluate what they had done and said, how many hours you guys put into this? 100 hours. And and the slides are pretty, but there's no connection here. Connection is the number one thing. Number one thing. That's what stories do.
Yeah, story is a power. But what I notice these days, some people facing fears, and change, especially later in life, can be scary, naturally. What advice do you have for the listeners on confronting and overcoming their own fears that come with seeking a dramatic life or career change at this stage of life?
It's a great question for you, because I know that you can help people relocate from one country to the next. And that's a huge, sometimes scary thing. So I'm so glad you asked this question, because this is an easy one. First thing that comes to mind is probably the most important thing. Surround yourself with people that accept that excitement. So you are like the people you surround yourself with. You just can't help but be like that. So if you're around people that are playing it safe and playing it quiet and complaining all the time about how much they hurt or how things used to be or living in the past, run, because that is going to bring you down with it. I'm not saying you need to dismiss these people completely from your life, but do find people that are exciting to be around. Find people that are doing things that are still interesting. If they're younger than you, that's okay. They don't have to be older than you or your age, but surround yourself with people that have that ambition to do something exciting and different. And your interpretation of that word is up to you as far as exciting. Remember, I am married to a stuntman. His idea of exciting is the next near deadly sport that he can pick up. Okay. It doesn't have to be jumping out of an airplane. Whatever that excitement is, if it's going on a trip to Africa, that might be extremely exciting and out of your comfort zone for you. Then find somebody that has done it, talk to them about it, befriend them, get yourself around people that have that almost still childlike quality, that want to have an adventure. There's a curiosity with these people, right? Like my husband, there's a curiosity. What would it feel like to be in a wingsuit? I'm like, I don't have that at all. That is not anything that I want to do. But for him, it's a curiosity. What would it be like for people that like to travel? What would it be like to go to Spain? What would it be like to go to Patagonia? What would it be? And if you have that curiosity and it's not going away, find other people that have that same sort of energy and hang out with them. Ask them questions. It's either going to bring you up to the point that you feel more comfortable moving forward, or you're going to say, you know what, maybe I don't want to do that. And that's okay too. Then you find what it is that is going to light you up. But the first thing I say is look at who you are surrounding yourself with. It's so important that if you ever think about the folks that bring you down, like you ever have somebody, Emily, that you talk to and you walk away and you're like, I am exhausted, right? Just from talking to them. Those are the people that you need to put a red flag on in your mind and go, less time for the red flag people, less time. Be there when they need you, but limit how much access you give them to your energy field, because it's going to bring you down.
Speaking about me, actually, curiosity is my main driver. Some people are surprised because I don't know if you're aware, I'm traveling alone in Mexico, taking public bus, and I feel okay. I have experience with this. I'm really, without Spanish, going to communicate and starting to communicate with different people. And actually, one of my Mexican friends asked me, like, you don't fear? Like, why? Like, you're so fearless. And I told him, and I remember he was surprised that my curiosity is stronger than fear. So I'm okay. And I know that some people might be stumbled upon my openness even to communicate with them. But after a short time, it's going all okay. But curiosity for me, it's a big driver, and actually in many things I do in my life.
Curiosity is an incredible driver. It's an incredible driver for, I don't know if you are familiar with Diane Sawyer. She's still around, but she was very famous broadcast journalist around the same time as Barbara Walters. They were actually competitors, a lot of it. Oprah Winfrey interviewed Diane Sawyer, and she said, what do you attribute your success in this male-dominated industry? You were successful for so long. What do you contribute your success to? And Diane said, without even much of a hesitation, she said, my insatiable curiosity. Because there were times that she would ask, she interviewed Saddam Hussein at one point, and she asked a question that made all of his people gasp for her safety. And Oprah said, did you think that you weren't going to get out of there alive? And her answer was, and you could identify this, I thought I wasn't going to get out with the footage, but I knew I would get out alive because I was just asking because I was curious. And he answered the question because she legitimately, going back to when I said the horses will read if you are in alignment, she was legitimately curious. She wasn't she wasn't fearful and trying to cover it up. Her curiosity overrode her fear. And she asked from that place. And when you ask from that place a question of somebody, even someone as evil as Saddam Hussein, it got through. There was a connection there, and he answered it. And I think that was one of her keys to success of being an interviewer for so many years. So it's perfect. It's yours.
Thank you. And now I'm just wondering about your sources of influence and inspirations. You've had a diverse and fascinating life journey. Who or what have been your biggest influencers and inspirations along the way, both in your acting career, personal life, or coaching practice?
That's a tough question because there's so many. And I feel like every day I find somebody new that I'm like, oh, fabulous. Mel Robbins recently has been she has such a great way of being. And I'm listening to her. And then there's a gentleman named Warwick Schiller. I listened to him for a while. These are all people that have podcasts, but they ask in a very real, absolute curious fashion. And so I learn a lot from the people that host shows like that and the guests they have on. So I'm constantly learning and feeding myself with things like that. But personally, I think my spiritual turns have been very influential in how I was doing at different times and how I handled things. And so I would say that there have been a couple of pastors that have really made a huge difference. And one of them was female, who's very well known. Another is not so well known via television, but very influential and just helping me learn to regulate through faith, how to get through some difficult times. And I think I had an acting coach that was very influential only because he called me out harshly one day and said, stop trying to be perfect. This was a great lesson. He said, perfection is overrated. We as human beings are drawn to the brokenness in each other. If I learned nothing else from him, that was the best life lesson. That was great because it's so true. It's the brokenness that makes us look at somebody that may look perfect and go, oh, wait, maybe she gets me. Maybe he gets me. And that goes back to what I was saying. Share that vulnerability in your story when you're sharing a bit of your life. It's not that everything was, yeah, I was great. I pushed through. Say it was difficult and I pushed through. And that just means so much more to people. There are books. I go back and I read the Bible every day, but I go back and I reread Napoleon Hill. There's so many books that I just go back and put back into my brain every so often as a reminder to stay focused. So yeah, a lot of different influences for sure. And small things. I think it's important to realize people can make differences in your life that are they probably don't even remember. Do you know what I mean? So there was an actress one day, I was terrified of, this goes back to like me being paralyzed to speak up for myself. I had a crazy fan following early on in my career. My character is very popular and there was an actress on the show and I was talking to her and nothing faced her. I think when she was little, she had gone through big trauma. She had worked through it. She was just, to me, was so resilient and confident. And she handled fans so well. I said, how do you do that? I said, I'm terrified to walk out the front door of the studio because they're waiting for me and they're going to hug me. And I didn't grow up in an affectionate family. So at the time, a hug was like an assault. I was like, how do I do this? And she was so cute. She just looks at me. She goes, oh, sweetie, just say, hi, how are you? And extended her hand to shake a hand. Nobody's going to hug you if you give them your hand. You're putting something between your two bodies, yet you're being friendly. It's the simplest physical solution to what I was so in my head about. There were times, I hate to admit this, I would sneak out the back door and leave these people waiting in the front because I was so frightened of them. How silly is that? So when you say the influences, sometimes it's somebody mentioned her name just this past week because there was a reunion for the show. And somebody brought up her name, and I still think about the huge impact that she had, just showing me how to handle fans and keep myself safe. Something so small.
As far as I know, nonverbal communication is one of the critical aspects of your coaching. How can mastering of nonverbal cues make a difference in how we perceive, and what are some common mistakes people do?
I shared something recently. I've heard it before. I heard it shared on a podcast. And so I wish I could remember the woman that shared it because I would absolutely give her credit. But I have heard it before. So I'm just going to show you something that we can do as simple as stature. And everybody probably has been familiar with the Amy Cuddy TED Talk when her posture, putting your hands on your hips and being powerful and all that stuff. It's along those lines. But the way you walk into a room will determine whether somebody is going to consider you influential or not. And when I say influential, the ability to influence others for good. I don't mean influential as in walking in all showy like a celebrity. Influential as being impactful to whatever the conversation is going to be in the room, being important, to draw somebody's attention, to be charismatic. The number one thing is, how are you postured when you walk in the room? So one of the things that we do almost, especially women will do, is they can almost seem apologetic. Stop apologizing. Number one, stop it. Like I almost went into coaching mode yesterday at the grocery store because a woman walked past me. It's an aisle. You walk past people. I'm standing there for a second and she walks past me and goes, "Excuse me." I'm like, she said, "I'm sorry." She didn't say excuse me. She said, "I'm sorry for walking past me." And I wanted to stop her and coach her and go, "Stop doing that. Stop it." You're allowed to walk past somebody in a store. You don't have to say, "I'm sorry," or excuse yourself. Like, it's one thing if you say, "I need to get by you. Thank you. I'm sorry." Like, all right, different situation. I wanted to stop.
Probably she was Canadian. In Canada, it's acceptable.
I know it's polite and all of that, but I see it so often that, or if she felt that I had to just say, "Oh, thank you," even excuse me, but "I'm sorry." No, you're not sorry. There's a posture that also will echo that I'm sorry, or "I'm insignificant," or I'm not important. And that happens a lot when women walk into a room. They'll even put their shoulders up and go, "Hi," right? And they become really little. That makes them little. They think it makes them approachable. And, or they end their sentences with an upswing. "Hi, how are you?" No. If you really want to come across and have yourself feel like you are confident and that you are influential, your voice, your body language, and what you say. But your body language is probably number one. So when you walk in the room, you want to do the opposite of what we do so much every single day. When we look at our phones, everybody holds their phone down by their waist, puts their head down to their chin. And if anybody's listening to this or watching this, I want you to just go ahead and do that for a second. Lower your chin to your chest. Realize that you can't breathe all that well in this position. So you're already starting to short circuit your body of oxygen because you can't breathe as well. It's not a healthy position. And then what else do we do when we're looking at our phones? Our shoulders go forward.
It's not healthy position from many aspects.
Yeah, but this is the posture of most teenagers, right? When they're standing in line, they're doing this. The problem with that is if I say to somebody in an acting 101 class, first acting class, to go, "I want you to take the posture of somebody who is depressed or feels heavy shame." What posture is that? Head down to the chest, shoulders slumped. It's the same posture. So we are, every time that we look at our phone and hold our phones down and do that, actually putting our bodies in a position of shame, posture, depression.
There is a movement now to forbid to ban the phones from the classroom. At least at school, and I think it should be no, because it's a big problem with the young generation and all the influence from many aspects that's for with this phone thing.
In many ways, detrimental. Yes. And if you're saying, "I have to look at my phone," or "I'm standing in line, what am I going to do?" I'm sitting at a desk. I have my elbow on the desk right now, and I'm looking at my phone, and it's upside down. But I fix it. But I'm looking at my phone. I'm not looking down because I have my phone up and in front of me.
You're looking at the mirror. You keep it as a mirror.
Yeah, you can, but if people go, "Well, it'd be so awkward to hold it up." It's not. It's really not. If I'm standing in line, I can put my hand under my elbow and I can rest it against my chest, and I'm looking at my phone and my head is not down. When I do this, by the way, in public, it's what my husband says is situationally aware. I can see what's going on. If my head is down here, I don't know if anybody's coming at me, trying to get my attention. I don't know if a bus is coming to hit me. It's just so much healthier, and to keep yourself safe in so many ways, to keep aware of what's going on. Hold it up. Your posture is better. You will look more influential if you mimic this when you walk in a room. When you mimic the stronger posture with shoulders up, shoulders back and down, chin slightly up, so you're not slumped over at all. And take a step into a room. And this is interesting because I went with a friend of mine who specializes in etiquette and showing up. We went to an event together, and we were talking about where's the best place to stand when you go to a party or a networking event. And we said some people would think it's at the front door. No, it's not at the front door. And it's not in the back of the room where you think you can see people. It's where she and I would naturally feel like we went. As soon as you leave the bar, within a few feet of that. Just think about that. Because when somebody leaves, if you're just say, I'm an introvert, so I identify with this. I would go to a party and maybe I didn't know anybody. I would get a drink in my hand and suddenly I felt like I had a reason to be there. I had a prop. I have a drink. It could be water. It doesn't matter. But I have something in my hand that says I'm part of the party. And I would turn from the bar, and what's happening when people turn away from the bar? They're looking, going, where do I go next? Who do I talk to? And if you are the person standing there and you say, hi, you're their savior. This was actually a story that was on the Mel Robbins podcast that we were listening to going to this event, but both my friend and I were laughing because that's what we do anyway. And I think it's because I start talking to people while I'm in line, waiting to go to the bar. And then we just continue the conversation a few feet away. We don't walk that far. But that puts me in the position where people that are looking a little lost, deer in the headlights, and I feel like they need somebody to talk to, I invite them over, I get to know them. And I can find myself standing in that one space, if I'm not careful, for an hour, talking to different people. And that's a good thing. That's body language that is open. So I would turn to somebody and go, hey, come on over. Shoulders back, chest open. When your chest is open to somebody, it's actually allowing them to come forward. Whereas you're looking, especially if you're looking at them, that helps a lot, because if you're turned towards them, but you're looking over their shoulder, that's a very uncomfortable feeling to be on the receiving end of that. And I have been. There are plenty of parties in my previous life that were like that, where people were shaking my hand and looking over my shoulder to see who they might be missing. And that's just a pet peeve of mine. I can't stand it. The most charismatic thing to do is shake somebody's hand and shake it no more than 3 times and look them in the eye and say hello. Make it like, that'll make somebody feel like they're the only person in the room. And that's body language. It's working really well.
In every culture, by the way, in many cultures.
I think so. In many cultures. I hesitate to say every, because I haven't been to some countries that maybe that might not be the case. But I think in most, yes. Yes. A smile, a handshake, and a look into the eye that says hello. Yeah.
Very valuable. Thank you. And for those people who are unsure about what their next chapter might be hold, how can developing their charisma and communication skills open doors to unforeseen opportunities?
Number one, you said it yourself, asking questions, right? Is they're trying to figure out, hey, do I want to do this or do I not? So I said, find those people around you that are still living with that childlike curiosity and enthusiasm, and ask those people questions. Just say, oh, you love to go play pickleball. That's awesome. I've never done that. Where do you do that? And they'll say, oh, we go with so-and-so. And do you want to come? Will usually be one of those next things. And there you go. Opportunity has opened up. Or, oh, you coach people that have new businesses. That's interesting. How did you do that? How did you make that? Ask the questions. And when you ask the questions, people will go, why are you asking? Are you interested? I can introduce you to somebody. And the next thing, you have doors that are opening only because you're showing actual 100%. You're in the moment of the conversation. Number one, most charismatic thing you can do is be in the moment, not in your to-do list, not what happened on the way there to wherever it was that you're having the conversation, but actually be in the moment. Be in the moment, have that open body language, and ask questions from a legitimate, aligned place where you are actually curious about them. And when you do that, the next thing is to be a really good listener. Listen to what the answer is. And what you're listening, like if you're investigating something that you might be interested in, oh, you're a consultant for, I don't know, let's make up so you're a consultant for a zoo. That's really cool. How do you do that? And somebody says, I had this conversation and I had this mentor, and listen to how they answer you when you ask that question. Are they answering with enthusiasm? Do they really have joy in what it is that they're doing? Because if they do, ask them more. If you ask them, how did they get to do what they do? And they sound like they're not enjoying it. I don't know if you want to pursue that. You want to ask questions and see how enthusiastic people are. So the listening part is not just what they're saying, but it's how they're saying it. Look for the nuances inside of their answers so that you're like, oh, this person really does love being a librarian or whatever they become. They really do love it. Why do they love it? What does it do? What's their life like? It's those kind of things. When you see that lights them up, ask the questions why. Everybody has a story. And if you ask them to share their story and all the little nuances and you really listen for them, people are fascinating. They're just fascinating. So you'll find your own way and doors will be open, but you'll also find compassionate understanding for people that maybe you hadn't ever thought you could understand before.
Amazing advice. And finally, Sandra, what words of wisdom can you offer to community of listeners who are eager to reinvent themselves, but might need the extra nudge to take the first step?
I think I'm often asked the question of what's the best piece of advice or what's the best thing you can tell somebody about finding their charisma and their purpose and the nudge that they might need to pursue what's in their heart and all of that. And I think the number one thing after being in the celebrity world and the world of Hollywood and being in the real world and seeing and working with people of all different industries and levels of education, that the most important thing is to not believe what other people say about you, whether it's good or whether it's bad. That is not your identity. Your identity is it's to me, it's in God. It's in the creator. It's in what you were designed to be here on this planet. And it is not what a hater says about you on Instagram. And the way to relieve that is to just go, wow, they still have a journey to go. They're on a different journey than you. But what they say about you has nothing to do with your actual value. The same goes for somebody that flatters you and flatters you and flatters you. And I know it's really tempting to believe that, but I've seen that be the downfall for people, celebrities, successful people, because they believe what people said about them and they missed so many opportunities to make their lives richer. So don't believe what other people say about who you are. Just know who you are. Do the work yourself and stick with it. You're never too old to keep learning about what your journey is going to be here. I want to keep learning until like my last days, if I can. There's so much that we can learn. There's so much that we can do to influence, and just keep searching for all the good stuff that's inside.
What is incredible journey we've been on today. Won't you agree? Thank you, Sandra D. Robinson, for joining us and sharing your wisdom, your words from the heart, and actually harnessing our inner charisma at any age. Thank you for our curious and courageous listeners for tuning in and exploring exciting possibilities that await each of us in the world of reinvention. I truly believe in it. And if today's conversation has ignited something within you, or you are intrigued about embarking on the first step toward your next chapter, remember, it's always possible to start. We are eager to hear your stories and thoughts, so please reach out via social media channels or drop us email. Your feedback and stories are not just important to us, they inspire us and others, listeners, making our community stronger. Remember to subscribe to our podcast, Age of Reinvention, for more inspiring episodes like this one. We are elevating your career, redefining personal happiness, or discovering new passions. We are here to provide the guidance you need. We are committed to working this journey with you. Until next time, keep embracing your wonderful wisdom years with excitement and ambitions. Here to reinventing ourselves because the best is yet to come. Bye for now.